Writing the West. Stories and poems by Rick Steber. Read by Michael Messner and friends. Boiled buffalo hide. A small group of friends came west together. They endured the long wagon trip and at the Dalles took a raft for the remainder of the journey down the Columbia River. Coming through Cascades Rapids, a strong wind hit their raft from the side and capsized them. They were thrown into the icy water and forced to swim for their lives. By some miracle, all landed safely on a narrow strip of shoreline that butted up against a rock wall several hundred feet high. They quickly got down to the basics of survival. One man had flint and was able to start a fire with driftwood. A boiling pot and a buffalo hide happened to wash ashore, and since the hide was the only thing remotely associated with food, they scraped off the hair, cut the hide into strips, and placed the strips in the pot to boil. At Fort Vancouver, friends were awaiting their arrival. When the raft did not reach its destination, they became worried and arranged for natives to search the river. They located the lost group on their solitary spit of beach and rescued them. The little group had spent 7 days and nights on the isolated beach, subsisting only on the boiled buffalo hide. Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett was born in 1786 near the mouth of Limestone Creek in what would become the state of Tennessee. He was the fifth of 9 children and split his time playing in the outdoors and passing time in the log cabin tavern operated by his father. Davy listened to the stories the travelers told about the wilderness to the west, and it sparked his desire for a life of adventure. When Davy was 13, his father sent him to school, but after only 4 days, Davy got in a fight and, rather than face a whipping from his father, he ran away from home. He found employment driving a herd of cattle to Virginia and stayed on there working for farmers, freighters, and a hat maker. After 2 years, he returned home. Davy went to work for one of the neighbors, and in his spare time he practiced shooting his rifle and developing his hunting skills. He became so proficient he won most of the local shooting contests, paying 2 bits for a single shot at a target, the one closest to the bullseye winning a quarter of beef. Davy's aim was so true he often took home the entire beef. Once again, Davy returned to school. This time, his studies lasted 6 months before he abruptly quit to go to work and get married. He fought in the Creek Indian War, became a representative to the Tennessee legislature, and was elected to Congress, where he became famous for his backwoods stories and humorous speeches. In 1835, Davy led a group of Tennessee volunteers to Texas to fight in the war against Mexico. It was at the Alamo in March of 1836 that Davy Crockett, along with a force of 186 men, refused to surrender to the 4,000 troops in the Mexican army. The Americans fought to the last man in the Battle of the Alamo. Speed of horse. The trouble with America is simple. It's these doggone roads and highways and those newfangled automobiles. We used to travel at the speed of horse. You saw everything that was fit to see. Birds in a field rising as you passed, does and fawns feeding on spring grass, a gray rabbit dashing in the weeds. There were wild plums for the picking, and apples, cherries, and acorns, too. There were ditches, gullies, and hills, mountains, lakes, and dark forests. When traveling at the speed of horse, there was always more to see. After the war. The War of the Lava Beds had been lost, and the Modoc tribe was exiled to the Quapaw Reservation in the Oklahoma Territory. In the spring of 1874, a correspondent for the St. Louis Dispatch visited the Modocs at their barracks. He wrote of his meeting with the head chief, Scarface Charlie.
The desire was expressed to witness the skill of the Modocs with the bow and arrow. Scarface issued some orders in his native tongue, and in less than a minute, 30 bucks appeared upon the scene, armed with bows and arrows and dressed in the most fantastic garbs imaginable. One had on buckskin leggings and a lady's skirt of which he was evidently proud. Another had nothing on but a pair of army pants. To show off their bows, an inch-thick pine board was propped up, and one of the Modocs stepped off 25 paces. His arrow was a plain wooden shaft, but the bow was powerful enough to drive the shaft through the pine board. Everything being ready for a trial of skill, a twig was split and stuck in the ground, and I was requested to donate a nickel, which was put on top of the twig.
The correspondent went on to say that the contestants arranged themselves in a line about 25 yards from the twig. The shooting was extraordinarily accurate. Each time the stick was hit, the man responsible went running to claim the money, and the correspondent had to keep digging in his pocket for more change. Modern logger. Lumberjacks originated in Maine. They cut the white pine, and when it was gone, they swept into New York and Pennsylvania before moving on to the Great Lakes region. Near the turn of the 20th century, the lumberjacks arrived in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest to log the straightest, biggest, thickest timber any of them had ever seen. In the wake of the loggers came farmers to grub stumps and plant fields. Skid roads became highways, and towns were planted. The lumberjacks' ancient enemy, civilization, had caught up to them. And as the West became developed, the citizens of the towns and cities demanded that forests be set aside for recreation. There was no room for the old adage of cut out and get out. The hard-shelled lumberjack and timber baron gave way to a generation of foresters who spoke of safety, conservation, selective logging, and sustained yields. This new breed of foresters believed timber to be a renewable resource and realized that as tree farmers, they had certain responsibilities and obligations to the public and to the environment. The loggers and lumbermen of today look to the wastefulness of the past to help plan the future, a future that will provide healthy forests and renewable crops of trees for generations to come.
You've been listening to Writing the West. The stories and poetry in this podcast are by Rick Steber and appear in books by him. Log on to www.ricksteberauthor.com to find out more. This program was produced by Michael Messner by permission of the author. Special thanks to Michael Tucker, Rachel Pulliam, and Art Shingler. Thank you for listening.